It was another night of violent protests at another college campus over another controversial speaker. Conservative speaker and Vice Media co-founder Gavin McInnes was scheduled to speak at New York University last night at an event organized by a Republican group on campus. Before the speech began, protesters gathered outside the building where McInnes was scheduled to appear. He was hit with pepper spray on his way inside, according to a university spokesman.
Can I ask you this? I'm sorry. I'm sure I should know this guy. Who is this guy? They're doing this for a guy I've never even heard of. I heard of that other guy.
I'm not laughing at the seriousness.
No, I'm just saying, who is that guy that they're like blowing stuff up? Who is Alex McInnes?
Gavin.
Is he a historian or something? Did he write?
What's his name? What's his name again?
North and South or something, or what? Who is he?
He's from Vice Media, conservative guy. He said some inflammatory things.
Is Vice conservative?
Some people within it. I don't think
Apparently
generally speaking.
I never heard of the guy.
No.
He is apparently a Canadian writer, actor, comedian, and co-founder of Vice Media and host of the Gavin McInnes Show on Compound Media.
Huh. Well, so they hate him because he's Canadian. So now we're doing this in Canadians.
Now I feel sympathy for the.
I'm sure there's some reason why the anarchists went that way. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So shortly after McInnes' speech began, people started to curse at him and shove one another.
You got to stop that.
Several people reportedly were arrested.
Larry O'Connor, oh my Lord, what's going on here?
Well, first of all,
I read a book called The Closing of the American Mind, like back in law school, like 800 years ago.
That book was controversial when it was.
It was controversial when it came out. Now, of course, people like Condi Rice and Christine Lagarde are pressured from speaking at commencements.
That's right.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it is. It's not new. I mean, I just spoke with Michelle Malkin on my show yesterday on WMAL in D.C., and she said, yeah, they did this when I had my book at Berkeley 10 years ago. They didn't have bonfires and riots and this kind of thing, but this is a real danger for the left and for Democrats. You know, if Democrats were smart, if Cory Booker were smart, he would ask Rachel Maddow to join him with Milo Yiannopoulos, with Ben Shapiro, and escort them onto a college campus and say, no, this is not what we do in America. If we disagree, we listen, and then we argue with our points. This is ridiculous. And Democrats, by their silence, the left, by their silence, they're getting locked in with this. To the American people's eyes, to citizens across this country, they see opposition to Trump and opposition of conservative values as violent thugs. That's not a good thing.
Well, and every time you see the protests, I remember growing up. In Atlanta, Georgia, a suburb of Atlanta, Georgia, called Doraville, when I was really young, David Ignatius. And I'll tell you what, every time we saw college campuses burning, it just scared the hell out of my parents and made them more conservative. It was.
That's right.
In fact, they were Democrats their entire life. My mom and dad was Republican. My mom was a Democrat entire life. The whole family were Democrats. And after the chaos of the late 60s, I think in 1972, they started voting Republican and never looked back. They were scared to death by what they saw on their TV sets.
I think you put your finger on it. Donald Trump is seeking to create a new majority of people who felt left out, who feel that the elites ignore them. Bannon is a brilliant articulator of that strategy. And Democrats need to be careful that they don't play into that. That they don't seem exactly like the people that folks in the middle of the country feel ignore them, take their own interests above other people's.
One of the things Democrats have to understand, first of all, it is reprehensible that we don't allow people to come on college campuses and speak. If you disagree, go and ask the questions. I hope that Rachel Maddow and Rachel, who is phenomenal on this network, will go and do those kind of things. Donald Trump, the Democrats are playing a prevent defense while Donald Trump and his team are playing the most imaginative offense, relentless in their daring. If we don't understand and appreciate this, we're going to be not only left behind, we're going to find ourselves not in power for a long time. We cannot sit back and watch him and say, gosh, this is terrible, he's awful, and only say that. We have to offer ideas to challenge him. And if you're going to block people from speaking who you disagree with and not offer challenge and offer optionality and offer something different, we're going to find ourselves sitting here on the sidelines for a long, long time.
As a Democrat, you have to resist, but you also have to engage.
You have to be proactive. You have to offer ideas.
And you have to engage. And just like I said in the Republican primary, stop being shocked and stunned. Stop fainting. Stop going on your fainting couch and start mocking Start ridiculing the
Joe?
stupidity of the ideas that you oppose.
And offer a different direction.
And offer,
That's right.
Caddy K, offer a different direction. And Caddy, I'm wondering, is this an American phenomenon as far as sort of this, the chilling of free speech on college campuses? Or does this happen in Britain? Does this happen across Europe?
The idea of safe spaces on campuses, i.e. safe spaces for progressives and liberals' viewpoints, does seem to be a relatively recent and particularly American phenomenon. I'm not hearing the same thing about British universities or European universities, that people are being offered invitations to speak and they're not able to go and speak at them. And you're quite... Look, of course, we have to engage in dialogue, and everybody should be able to go and speak on that campuses, and that is the lifeblood of democracy, is to be able to hear different points of views. There is a moment, I think, where protest can be useful. I mean, in fact, America's been remarkably free of street protests since the Vietnam War. We had, after 2008, you had many more violent, much bigger protests on the streets of Europe, because Europeans still looked to the state to help them and support them, and the state wasn't doing that. And there's a moment for protest here possibly too. And, you know, look at the different reaction to the women's marches and to the protests that happened spontaneously after the immigration ban, for example, was implemented, and the lawyers turning up at the airports. And I think most people looked at those and thought, that's the way, if you're going to protest, that's the way you do it, right? There was a and whether it achieves anything, who knows? But if you believe that there's a role for street protests in democracy, they were a shining example of how to do it.
Protests, great. Couple rules here. Let's not burn things, and let's not tear up Starbucks and loot Bank of America.
Definitely not Starbucks.
Or Bank of America.
Or Bank of America.
ATM machine.
I just think this conversation is taking place. There have been some incidents. This incident is really bad. These things should not happen. There should not be violence. That people should be allowed to speak. But in the larger context here, there are like dozens, since Trump has taken office, there have been dozens. Huge protests that we've taken notice of in the media and across the country.
That's great.
There's a huge, I think Democrats are not engaging right now. In fact, quite the contrary. I think like what you're seeing right now, whether it gets channeled to effective uses in terms of recapturing a Democratic majority in the House or Senate, which I think is the ultimate goal down the line 2 years from now. We don't know that yet, but right now, the energy that Democrats have on their side and the lack of popularity of the current president right now, I don't think Democrats are retreating at all. It seems to me like they're engaging.
New York Times here, headline, anarchists vow to halt far right's rise with violence if needed.
Bad idea.
And I'm going to say, I think there's a debate on how popular this president is. I know there was a Quinnipiac poll that had him at 36 last week. The Gallup has him at 43%. I saw a PPP poll, though, that had all of these negative headlines. And then he ended up being at like 46% approval, 48 disapproval. I'm not so sure that David Ignatius isn't right. They may know exactly what they're doing as far as inciting this type of reaction and watching it work in their favor. You know, it's very important to remember that from 68 to 72, there were constant protests out in the street. I mean, the May Day protest, Kent State, it was horrific. It looked like the world was coming to an end. Richard Nixon went from barely beating Hubert Humphrey in 68 to winning 49 states in 1972. So there was a reason, because parents like mine were scared to death.
And
in
but this is why if the left and progressives make their marches look like the Women's March, they're in great shape. And if it starts to look violent, they're in bad shape. That's a pretty bright line to me.
We also have an example of an actually persuasive protest this morning. The CEO of Uber, Travis Kalanick, who was on Trump's advisory board for business, felt the pressure, not violent pressure, felt the pressure from his consumers, his customers who were dropping the app and picking up the Lyft app, and he backed off the board. That's the way, if you want to put pressure on people, destroying property and lighting fires and hurting innocent people is not the way to do it.
It's called capitalism. Larry O'Connor, final words.
Listen, as a Republican, if you think the Women's March was a great shining moment, I fully endorse the idea of Ashley Judd and Madonna speaking on behalf of the party of the Democrats going forward. Also, this idea, you're conflating the popularity of Donald Trump with his policies. Mark Hemingway wrote in the Weekly Standard this week that this is an underreported story, but the executive order on immigration that caused all of these protests at the airports that actually people like me got very upset about because we missed our flights, that's actually a very popular executive order right now. Trump may not be popular, but the policy, that executive order is not unpopular with the American people. So don't confuse the two. He may be unpopular, but his policies are hitting the right note.
Again, I've seen so many conflicting polls. I don't know whether we say he's unpopular or
Well,
not.
I'm citing the Reuters poll from yesterday. So
What was the Reuters poll yesterday?
it said 40, I think it was 49%.
Approved.
Which was the larger number, approved of the immigration
Yeah, 49
order.
approved. No, I was talking about his approval rating.
Oh yeah, his approval rating. Listen, he's not a likable guy all the time. I mean, he's a vulgar man. Let's face it. So he's never going to reach that popularity. And also, by the way, he's got such a low bar right now. All he has to do is not be Hitler, and so many voters are going to say, "Well, what's wrong with this guy? He's not that bad."
A new standard in America.
Wow.
That is quite a low standard, sir.
Hey, I haven't said it. It's been the Democrats and the media who have set that standard.
We got to go. Maybe more right than wrong.
Yeah, we got to go to break. I've got to say, Gallup actually showed that to be unpopular by, I think, 59%, 58% disapproved. Reuters said it was popular. Again, you've got polls that have Donald Trump at 36%. I saw a poll yesterday, a Democratic poll, that actually had him at 45, 46% approval. So it is a shakedown cruise. We don't know how this is going to end up. And right now, just a lot more questions.
Donald Trump
than
has
answers.
overshadowed the Super Bowl. We're not talking about, it's Friday. No one's talking about the Super Bowl. I mean, his week, this is an unbelievable week.
And here's the tease. Since we've been talking, Trump has tweeted about Arnold Schwarzenegger, Iran, and Australia.
Tell me, what do you think?
No, that's our tease.
That is quite a tease. All right, Larry, thank you so much for being with us. Greatly appreciate it. And thank you for...
Patriots by 10. Take the over.
Oh, wow. That is
Larry, you
Tom
got
Brady
range,
went to
man.
Michigan.
I'll tell you,
Go blue.
the guy-
Go blue,
Go
Tom
blue,
Brady,
brother. Go
Michigan.
blue.
There you go.